Where did the restaurateur open his doors and infect anybody? It was here, it was brought to us. We've done the right thing. You go to any restaurant now, they're cleaning benches, we're wearing masks, and it's like, well, hold on, we're trying to just operate a business. And it's not conducive at the moment, and especially not in Victoria. It's a tough one, Huck. So honestly, you look at your business and you go, well, you know what? Why did I do this?
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. The restrictions put in place to help nullify the spread of COVID-19 have put pressures on the hospitality industry like never before. It was autumn when the pandemic landed. It's now spring, and a clear roadmap to recovery is on the lips of many industry professionals. With many concerned about the old hospitality model, what does a roadmap look like beyond COVID? Ian Curley is the co-owner of French Saloon, Kirk's Wine Bar, and the owner of consultancy firm Exec Chef. Ian, how are you, mate?
I'm good, Huck. Yourself?
I'm good.
We got a beautiful spring day, first day of spring here in Melbourne, and the sun's shining, and it would be a perfect time to be out and about, and either having a glass of wine or eating in a restaurant outside and stuff, or even playing golf, more importantly. But unfortunately, we're still in lockdown, which means that we're allowed out for an hour, and we've got to be home before 8 o'clock at night. Which we're tired of it now. It would be good if we could stop this now.
Well, has that first sunshine of spring, has that helped the sort of gloomy clouds that have been over Melbourne?
Well, I think because it was winter, we were kind of like, okay, it's winter. I mean, the thing that really set us back was the second wave. It was like the first thing that we kind of got through the first bit. We thought, okay, this is okay. We're right. We've done it. We were all sort of high-fiving each other, thinking, okay, we're going to get through. We're going to get through. We haven't had as many deaths as Europe and the rest of the world. And we're thinking, okay, all right, this is fine. But then, of course, on the weekend before we were supposed to re-get into it, they said, no, you're going back into a hard lockdown, which is stage 4, which is for us was like, it was the death knell for a lot of people. But for us, it was like, oh, really? Because we just sort of like, we thought we'd sneaked over the line, which is probably where we thought the problem was. But, the numbers were going up, and all of a sudden it was like, okay, you're going into a hard lockdown, which was, it doesn't matter which way you look at it, it hasn't been good. It's been good it's been good for the fact that not a lot of people have died so far, and that's been great. What hasn't been good is the way it's all been handled here down in Victoria. It's like they've put the pressure back onto the people, and especially people in business, which that hasn't been fair. When it's been proven beyond a doubt, pretty much, that it was the government's fault what happened anyway. And it's not about blaming anybody for what it is, but ultimately they put it back to basically me and you. If you were down here, they put it back to, oh, well, you've got to stay home and stuff like that. When that's not fair. Nothing's been passed on from a restaurant down here. Well, I know it has been in Sydney and other places, and we get the congregation thing, but also it's not fair on what's happened to us.
Few industries, apart from the arts, have had such a massive impact as hospitality from these restrictions.
Oh, I mean, hospitality's just been decimated with what they've done with like the visa workers and I mean, I've got to look at it pragmatically. I'm an owner of a restaurant, but I also work for people as well. So I look at it from both sides of the coin, and that's where I think I look at it and say, well, okay, the visa workers, they've just basically been thrown sideways and said, thank you very much for coming here and paying your taxes every week, every month, and the like. But sorry, there's no support for you. And you kind of go, well, hold on a minute, that's not right. But also, who's got enough money then to support them? So most small businesses can't do that. So I own a small business, so we can't afford to do that. So we've got maybe 15 people on JobKeeper or the like, or maybe 12 or 13. So we've kept those people on. But also your full-time staff, you've got to think to yourself, well, when we do reopen, now nobody's given us anything to say, okay, from the 13th of September or the 15th or the end of September, you're going to reopen. So you'll have those staff. You can't get your business to work to a budget. So we're all sort of like up in the air down here in Victoria. And it's kind of, well, hold on a minute. You're supposed to be running it. And this is the issue that a lot of people in Victoria are saying that, well, who's running this? So if there was a disaster like there was with the bushfires, you send in the army or you send in the fire brigade because they know what they're doing and they fix it. How do public servants fix a pandemic? You know, it's like they have more meetings about it than what you got. You know, when they can. But the army should have fixed it. If there's a disaster, a natural disaster, you send in the army, and you know, you can't get a public servant to fix this.
When we had a chat about coming on to Deep in the Weeds, one of the things you said was we need to discuss a way out of this crap, and we'll get to what the roadmap is like for hospitality shortly. But could you tell us what the impact of the lockdowns have been on French Saloon and Kirk's Wine Bar?
Well, I mean, French Saloon was, we were, I mean, I must admit, I was very proud of French Saloon. I loved it to bits, and it was a beautiful room. Kirk's Wine Bar was like, I think Kirk's will bounce back pretty quickly, I think, because we've got the outside section there, and you can sit outside the front, and it's a small wine bar. It doesn't cost a lot to run. It's got a beautiful business model. French Saloon's a little bit harder, but we had just received an amazing review from Jemima Cody in The Age. It looked like we were going to get our second hat. Everything was going along swimmingly in between there, and that was the Tuesday before. Now, there'd been rumours of this COVID, and people were getting panicky, and the Prime Minister had shut the flights off and stuff like that. But we got a review from Jemima Cody, and it was amazing. It kind of said, you know, these guys know what they're doing with restaurants. They've got it all under control. You know, it's a great review. And we thought, okay, well, that's going to kick us through winter because obviously coming into winter, it's hard in anywhere. And that week, we would have done like 10% of what we normally would do. And you kind of look at it and go, wow. So it came to the weekend. They were talking about lockdowns. And then my partner just said, well, no, shut it down. Come Tuesday, everybody's in hard lockdown. That's it, bang. And then, but there was no, and this is the frustrating thing. They say, right, from Monday or Tuesday, you're going to be shut down. This is what's happening. But we can't get an answer from the other side, from government saying, well, when we reopen. They're saying to us now, okay, we're going to let you know on Sunday. While they scramble for an idea, and they've got no idea because, again, I just think that public servants can't be doing this. You know, if I'm a chef, I know how to cook a meal, but someone said to me, can you go and run the state? I'm going to go, no, that's above me. And it's beyond them as well. And so we shut down straight away. We had a number of visa workers who we had to say, look, sorry, guys, we just can't support you because there's no support from the government. And basically, we had to scramble to find the money for the first 6 weeks for our full-time staff. And I've got to tell you, Hux, it was hard because you've got to find the money to pay them their $750 or the $1,500 a fortnight for the next 6 weeks. And you think about, like, for 6 to 7 weeks that you've got to find that from your bank accounts. Now, in hospitality, you know, the margins are small, and it was hard to find that money for the 6 or 7 weeks before the government reimbursed us. And then they're saying that there's handouts and stuff like that, which is all smoke and mirrors because it doesn't quite work that way. And you've got to go through so many different loops to actually get the money back, and it's just not, you know, it's just not viable. So a lot of places wouldn't have done that. And I know a lot of restaurants in Melbourne that are like saying, well, that's not for us. We can't do that. So, but for us, we kept on about 10 to 12 people on JobKeeper, and we were in a wait and see pattern. Now, where we are in the CBD, it's not conducive to doing takeaway because on the one hand, the government say, oh, well, you're allowed to do takeaway. But we're in the middle of the CBD in the legal and banking district, and the government is putting signs up saying, stay away from the city, don't go in unless you have to, and if your boss makes you work, let us know and we'll find your boss. So they're kind of, on the one hand, they're saying, you go in, and on the other hand, they're saying, no, stay away. So you can't go, well, what's the point of opening for takeaway when and there's another rule there about the Uber Eats and everybody else, these home delivery thing, which I won't get into now because that's another shambles. But also, it's not fair that you can't trade, but they want you to trade. So it's kind of like, well, so we didn't do takeaway. We didn't do it at all. So for us, it wasn't a viable option.
How did you feel during this period when, you know, you had to let go of international workers on visas that are a real vital cog in the industry and part of your group?
Oh, well, it's just shocking. But also, these are the people that you've asked, you pleaded with to come in every weekend and every day to fill in their roster and say, okay, you guys come in and do what you got to do, and we'll pay you every week. But also, you kind of these are the guys that you rely on. Now, they're not there anymore, and also you've essentially you're guilty by association by moving them aside and saying, look, I really can't afford to keep you. And of course, they look at you and go, well, hold on a minute, I've worked for you for this long, and again, it's put back onto the owner to turn around and say, well, it's not my fault that I'm in this situation. Like if we all had a lot of money, we could also always support these people, but we don't do that, and nobody likes doing it. It breaks my heart that we've had to let some of our really good staff go, who people that we rely on and we've trained up and that, and they've turned around and done for us what we've asked of them, and we've essentially just cast them out. And how bad is that? I mean, it's just such a bad thing to look at and say, well, that's not how we treat staff. That's not what we do in our industry, surely. And yet we're forced into that because how are you going to save your business if by just keep paying out? It's just not fair.
During the series, many people have talked about how the hospitality industry and the restaurant models were broken before COVID, and this will clean out the industry a little bit. What were some of the major issues with restaurant models before COVID that perhaps we could change?
Well, the reality, okay, let's look at it. Look at penalty rates in Melbourne. So penalty rates in Melbourne, if you work on a Sunday, you get X amount of money, up near $40 or $38, $39 for someone to make a coffee for you on a Sunday. Now, if you charge a 15% surcharge, people complain about the 15% surcharge, and you're ending up with penalty rates that are not sustainable to restaurants. I have my own theory about how to fix it, but also it should be like everybody should get together and say, well, hold on a minute, can we look at that in perspective? Like if you call out a plumber on a Sunday, you pay extra, which is fair enough. But in our industry, you can't charge it any extra for what else that we're doing, and everybody's like price competitive. If I'm charging coffee for $4.50, and the shop next door is charging $5.50, people are going to come to me as long as it's the same of a comparative rate. And that's what we've done forever in our industry. We've tried to be competitive with everybody in the industry. At the same time, we've just cannibalised ourselves because we, in Melbourne, we pride ourselves in this being the food capital. I know those people up in Sydney and, the Mexicans up in Queensland at the moment will say something different. But we pride ourselves in Melbourne about our hospitality scene. And no matter which way you look at it, we've got some great restaurants here with a value for money, competitive, and you can eat out a different cuisine every night in Melbourne for a month, and you still wouldn't be bored. So, and that's great. And all the restaurants that are employing people are putting people to work and paying their taxes, and they're doing the right thing, and they get penalised for it by having high penalty rates. And when they turn around, they say, "Oh, yeah, but you can't rip off the worker." Who's ripping off the worker? Nobody's ripping off any workers in Melbourne. I can guarantee you right now, not in decent restaurants or sensible restaurants that are playing by the rules. We're not exploiting workers. And in fact, if you look at it from the other perspective, like a first-year apprentice, honestly, you're going to get more work out of a pumpkin, really, from a first-year apprentice. But you've got to pay them something like $600 or $700 to think, hold on, where's the training here? And there's the thing that we're hampered with, and you're handcuffed to these rules and regulations, and it's really not fair. Because it's not done. It's not done in government. The government just sit around. Oh yeah, we impose that fine and all that sort of stuff. But that's not. It's not right.
What do you think some of the solutions are to go forward in regards to raising prices across the board in the industry?
Everybody should be. This is the thing. Everybody should be paying a competitive price for food. For example, if you're going to in Melbourne, we should be charging Sydney prices. Okay, in Sydney they do it and they put it away and say, "Oh, it's because it's more expensive to live in Sydney and everything else is more expensive." Well, we should be paying that. Well, unfortunately, you've got to be competitive with the people who are next door to you. And then when and customer was going to look at it and say, "Well, I'd rather go next door and have a cheaper feed or the like." So everybody's conscious of that. Yes, we have to put our prices up, but it's the hospitality industry, and then a lot of people forget about the word hospitality. We're there to look after people. We're not there to rip people off. And I don't know of any restaurant really, off the top of my head, that's ever gone, wow, we're making so much money, we don't have to worry about it. People, if I told you the rents of what it costs in the city to open, just to open the doors, we're talking about $250,000 just to open the doors. And that's a little small place. You think the big places like Chin Chin and you know poor old Andrew McConnell at the moment with his place, he's trying to open. He's probably getting hardly any rent relief. I mean, I don't know the story, but you know these new places where they're trying to employ people and the rents are so high, and you kind of go, well, hold on a minute, the city can't bounce back like that. There's no way that we'll be able to maintain the rents and revenues that are coming. Like what was, and that's pre-pandemic. So when we go back next year, which is really that's when we will be going back properly as to when it is. You'll have to look at it and say, well, this space used to be worth $500,000 or $250,000. Is it really worth that now? Paying rent and that'll be the case. And also, come the end of this month, when JobKeeper starts to like get whittled down to, and all your casuals go from 750 down to 300, then they're going to go, well, okay, that's when you're going to see the whites of a lot of people's eyes there, you know, and that's going to be hard, very hard.
Along with owning restaurants and a bar, you also consult to hotel groups like the Ovolo Group, which are outside of Melbourne. What's this period of time been like for you trying to consult on restaurants when you can't leave Melbourne?
Well, on the one hand, it's been great because I've got three kids at home that I haven't seen for a long time. So you don't have to travel to Brisbane and Canberra as much. But Ovalo have been great. You're allowed to do Zoom meetings. I mean, we've been doing that, and same. I've got a hotel in Ballarat, Craig's Royal, that I go to every Wednesday. I'm allowed to go there, but you've just got to keep plugging away. But also, when you're consulting, it's like you're looking at something and saying, well, consulting, you don't know what the next thing is. Next week is like, you know, in Victoria this week, they're going to turn around and give us a roadmap out of it. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen. They could turn around and say in 2 weeks' time, okay, we're going to extend it for another 2 weeks. We won't be back to normal by Christmas. And that's the thing that's really scary is we've missed all the racing season, the end of the footy, you know. I mean, and then there are times like normally what we do in Melbourne is as soon as the footy's finished, it's the spring racing carnival, and we know that's the restaurant time. That's the times that restaurants we're busy, the weather's good, people are sitting out, people are drinking wine, people are going out to restaurants. They're heading into with the races. Everybody's getting dressed up, and it's kind of like it's a great time to be in Melbourne for the next 6 months because we get to Christmas. You've got Christmas parties. Straight after Christmas, you've got the tennis, then the Grand Prix, and it's a good 6 months in Melbourne. We've lost that now. That's our revenue streams have gone, and so we're looking at really by March, we'll have done this for a year. So a year, you think about a business, any business that's not taking or hardly taking any money revenue wise for a year, and how are they supposed to survive? And the thing that frustrates me more than anything, and other people I know, is they've turned it round to say, oh, it's you guys who are caught up with other people and you know, there's got to be a curfew and you've got to do this and it's not. What did we do wrong? I don't understand. Where did the restaurateur open his doors and infect anybody? It was here. It was brought to us. We've done the right thing. You go to any restaurant now, they're cleaning benches. We're wearing masks. It's like, well, hold on. We're trying to just operate a business, and it's not conducive at the moment, and especially not in Victoria. I mean, luckily the rest of the country they're doing well. You know, it's very frustrating when you look at Instagram, you see people doing it, you go, well, bloody Sydney siders and, you know, those northerners, you know. So, but it's a tough one. Huck. So honestly, you look at your business and you go, well, you know what? why did I do this? You've got to question yourself. Why did I actually open restaurants to employ people for for the margins that you do? And you kind of go, well, okay, I do it because you love it. That's the only reason you do it. You don't do it to make money, but you do it because you love it, and this is the thing that you do, and you worked your whole life through 30 years of cooking in kitchens and doing what you do in kitchens. You think, okay, I want my own place. I don't want to be listening to people that tell me what to do anymore. You open your own place. And luckily, I had 3 beautiful places with the pub next door, French Saloon and Kirk's. You go, okay, that's great. I'm loving, this time last year, loving life. Amazing. Got lots of jobs, lots of things, revenue coming in. You think, okay, that's great. You're not making a lot of money at French Saloon because it's expensive to run. But, you're doing things, and you're doing your consulting, you're doing Noosa Food and Wine Festival, you're hanging out with Spencer and Rainer up north. You go, wow, this is great. How good is life? And of course, this comes along and it just kind of kicks you in the proverbials. And you go, wow, okay. But I don't think it's been handled properly down here. And they've got to do something about that, and they're going to have to do that, because there's a lot of people going to go to the wall, I know a lot of restaurateurs and restaurants in Melbourne, they're just not going to recover from this, and they won't be able to. And we won't have the staff to do it, because when we do open, we're full of visa workers, because there's not enough skilled Australians who want to do what we do in the kitchens. So when we do reopen, if we do get back to it, then we won't have those visa workers anymore.
You're one of the most passionate food professionals in the industry, and you're also one of the most influential operators in Melbourne's culinary history. But how did you get started in the industry?
Well, I was being the naughty boy. I'd been in a little youth offenders naughty boy back in the day, and it seemed like a really good idea to either become a professional bank robber or something like that, or a master criminal, which I've never been that bright. And then I just started cooking because they said it's a good way of traveling and meeting girls. So it's always been like that. It's not like one of those romantic passion things that, my family had a restaurant and I used to pull on Nana's strings and stuff like that and all that. Nah, my mother was the worst cook ever, and I just thought this will be a good way of getting out of my hometown of Coventry. And this industry that we have, it's just incredible. Like we are so very blessed to have people who we get to meet people who we would never get to meet at any other time. You get your celebrities in the restaurant, but you get people who I learn so much from people that I play golf with and all that through the restaurant, and you get to meet really good people. And we're blessed in Australia, produce-wise, weather, great people, and it's just an amazing opportunity for what we do here. And you don't do it for the money. This is the thing. You don't go, right, I'm going to make so much money now. You do it for the lifestyle it affords you, so that at the end of a night, you can have a glass of Pinot that's made by Mac Forbes and go, gee, this is fantastic, And that's what you do it for. And seeing the look on people's faces in your restaurant where they go, this is great. And luckily enough, we've done that in Hardware Lane. And I think ongoing, it makes it really hard for anybody in any business. And I think that's really not fair, because if you think about how many people come to Australia, what do they come for? They're not coming to Melbourne for the Harbour Bridge, because we don't have it. And that's the thing. So they come to Melbourne for the vibrant food scene, the bars, the restaurants, and, the fact that it's great weather and it's Australia and we look after people. And, there's value for money and it's amazing. Now that's been decimated. So for us, when we do reopen, we're going to have to do that all the way, get that back and say, well, how do we do that when you haven't been able to trade for a year? And as they start taking more and more money away from on the JobKeeper, and there'll be more and more people on JobSeeker. Now, the government don't want you to do that, because with that, they've got to give special, they're going to have to look after you more. And they don't want to do that. Nobody wants to see lines of unemployment and stuff like that, because we are going to go into recession. And that's when things are going to get really hard and tight. but from every restaurant, because they employ so many people. You've got all the suppliers, you've got the farmers, you've got everything else. And I don't think that they've taken the restaurant industry serious. I think they've just said, oh, you can do takeaway. Well, it's not quite as simple as that. You can do takeaway. Well, how do you do it when you don't have visa workers and staff? Who wants to do takeaway anyway? It's not what I wanted to go into work for and say, okay, and and just to stand there and try and make money and then give away X amount to the delivery driver people, you're just not going to make that much money. And so why do it? It just gives you more stress.
Have there been some pivotal moments or restaurants that you've worked at in your life that changed your career and set you on the path to success?
You get to meet people all the way along the line. Meeting Fergus and hanging out with Fergus Henderson and Trevor, that was fantastic. I mean, it's not good for your liver, but the reality of it is like, that's great. Angela Hart, I have regular conversations with Angela Hartnett about stuff, and that's been good. But I think, I get more value out of meeting people in my restaurants, and we just sort of like, we'll talk about stuff. I've got meet architects in my restaurants who are regulars and stuff like that, and you kind of go, how cool is it what they do? I mean, an architect who can design cities or buildings, that's fantastic. That's a skill and that's an art. What we do, we're a business, but from a pivotal moment, I just think we just do what we do, and if you enjoy it, it's not a job. I mean, what I do is not my job. It's just what I do. So I get up in the morning, I go and do that. If I'm making a pizza at my other place, or I'm doing something else, or I'm consulting with Ovalo or at Craig's Royal, that's what I do. I don't ever go clock in, clock out. Well, that's not the way to do it.
Well, you are very good at delivering great restaurant experiences, but what does it take to deliver something like French Saloon and an amazing experience like that?
Well, I mean, my partner's like Con, he's amazing at design and what he does, and he brings a wealth of experience there. Josh does the administration. For me, what the French Saloon was a really casual experience, that whereas you could just enjoy yourself and go and relax and go from there. I think ongoing, it's going to be hard to recreate that for the next 6 months. So I don't know what we're going to do there. I think what we'll do, Kirk's will reopen, and we'll do better food there at Kirk's and step up the ante there, and just wait and see how we all come out of this, because we will survive this, us and my group and stuff like that. But as more and more people realise that it's not what it's supposed to be industry wise, we're going to lose a lot of really good people who. They've taken loans out, they've got mortgages, and people's houses are going to go for this, and that's just appalling. That's just heartbreaking that you hear about things like that, and you kind of go, well, that's just... And they were ticking a lot, honestly. Huck's this time last year, kicking goals. We were loving life, thinking about holidays, the whole thing. In January, we went skiing in Japan. In February, we were in New Zealand cooking salmon. And in March, we're in lockdown. You got to go, wow. That's how quick it was. And when we were in Japan, there were people wearing masks. I was thinking, it's a bit of overkill with the masks. Look at us now. Now it's mandatory, that's the way it's going to be here for the next year.
Well, the Premier has said that he's going to announce what the roadmap looks like moving forward on Sunday. But what do you think some of the solutions are for the restaurant industry to get back to a bustling hospitality industry?
We definitely need to look at the penalty rates. We need to look at the penalty rates so it's fair for the owner and it's fair for the employees. Now, my own thing would be, you split your restaurants, cafes, or whatever it is into categories, and you turn around and say, okay, if you want to eat in a restaurant on a Sunday, this is the category. If you're a category 1 restaurant, if you want to eat in a restaurant on a Sunday, yes, there's a surcharge, and you will have to pay more to go there, but it's a restaurant. If you want to eat in a cafe, there is no surcharge, but it's a coffee. It is what it is. So we're just cannibalising ourselves by opening a restaurant on a Sunday and trying to get people to work and then complaining that we have to pay them $35, $45 an hour. So Well, but if we close, if the whole of the city of Melbourne closes, you go back to what it used to be like in 1980, where you can't do anything. So split it into categories, and you'll find that the people that want to work in restaurants, they're highly skilled individuals. People who will be proud to be a chef or a waiter. I want to work in a restaurant. The people who are working in the cafe, they're your uni students. And does a uni student really need $45 an hour? I don't know. And it's not. I'm not saying like what George said. Well, they're not university educated and stuff like that. If you split it, you've got to sit down and look at it and say, hold on a minute, it's not fair. You can't have a cafe on a Sunday trading, and you have to pay somebody $45 an hour. Because honestly, those staff are in there saying, I have to work on a Sunday as well. You can't win. so if we look at our restaurant industry and say, well, okay, let's split it into, give them, I don't know, ratings out of 5. If you're a restaurant, you're rating number 1, and go down the line. And if you do want to go to View de Monde, or you want to go to Gimlet, or you want to go eat at whatever, somewhere in Sydney, and if they're a rating 1, then of course you're going to pay more. And also all the way down the line, because you've got to employ more staff, you've got to have a sommelier, and the whole thing. And somewhere, I believe that somewhere in the middle of that would be French Saloon, would be number 3, out of number 3. We don't even open on the weekends in French Saloon because it was just too hard for us to get people in. We were a Monday to Friday restaurant.
Do you think we'll see offerings change on menus as well? Shorter menus, shorter trading periods?
Yeah, 100%, because you won't have the staff to do it anymore. So when we reopen Kirk's, we've probably got, like I said, we've got 10 people on JobKeeper. We'll have 10 people because that's all the staff we'll have to start with. And that includes our front of house crew. So we've probably got 5 or 6 in the kitchen, or 4 or 5 in the kitchen. And you've got 4 or 5 on the front. And that's our crew, and that's your start. And you've got to rotate them through, because you've still got JobKeeper until next March, hopefully. We've got to rotate them through, and you've got to utilise them the best way you can. And that's the thing about business now. Everybody's gotten a lot more business savvy recently, because they've realised how much we stand to lose, You think of a restaurant that was taking $100,000 or as a complex, $100,000 a week, they've lost $5 million this year. So you think, wow, that's a year, $5 million. And you go, wow, but that's $5 million that you had to pay tax on, that the government have missed out on as well. So how do we recover from that? It's going to take at least 4 or 5 years.
There's no doubt there's many challenges that lie ahead, but what are some of the positives moving forward out of this experience for the industry and for yourself?
Well, I think the one positive that I see is everybody's in this together at the moment. So that's the thing. There's nobody that's saying, okay, that's just in Queensland, or that's in Perth, or we're here. Everybody has been in this situation. You've done 100 podcasts. Of those 100 people, has any of them said, that hasn't really affected me? No. So we've all been down this. So the positives are that we need to band together. This will put a lot of people, and it will band us together, and we'll realise at the end of this, what is it we did? Why did we do this again? Why did we operate a business that we didn't have good margins and the like? I don't know. No restaurateur is making millions of dollars. That's just not happening. And if any restaurateur is going around telling you they're not telling the truth. The margins are so slim. And if you're good enough that you can make 10%, then fantastic on you, But you've got to have a lot of turnover to make that 10%. And also, from that, you've got to take out all your tax. You run a risk of losing a lot of money opening restaurants. So we have to look at it from an industry point of view and say, look, let's all do this together. Let's look at it in perspective. Yes, we're going to have to put the prices of food up, but let's do it logically. Let's do it smart. You've got cafes who are not making any money because they're trying to compete with the restaurant next door. Well, that's just not that's just silly. You go to good cafes, they've got just as good a food as some of the restaurants. You kind of go, well, how are you making money from this? People just got to be smarter about it.
I know French Saloon is very close to your heart. When the industry's back up again and it's bustling and full of people again, how are you going to feel and what are you going to drink to celebrate?
Well, I don't think I'll be opening French Saloon. I mean, I must admit, I can't see us opening French Saloon for another 6 months. For the simple fact that, one, I don't have enough staff because I don't have those visa workers. And two, Melbourne won't get the people back in the city for at least 6 months. So there's no way are they going to get, they're not going to flick the switch and people are going to jump on trains and you get rush hour again, you know. I get the train into town. There's 3 people on the train at the moment. So now that you're going to get people working from home because it's safe, but nobody wants to get infected. And so I can't see French Saloon opening for at least 6 months. And, you know, and then you have to reassess it. Well, what do you do with the staff that you've got? Now, Todd and the boys and all that, they don't want to work downstairs in Kirk's because, you know, they were quite enjoying working Monday to Friday at French Saloon and, you know, establishing that one hat, possibly 2 hats. They're going to go, well, I don't really want to go downstairs and do charcuterie and the like. And you go, well, mate, that's the offer that we've got. Now, next 6 months, I don't think French Saloon will open. It will be a space that we can do. Mate, hopefully, if we get some sort of Christmas trade, maybe we can do something at Christmas. But I can't, you know, honestly, Hucks, I can't see it for the next 6 months with people going into the city. And then towards Christmas, people will go, well, you know, we want. They might not even open the borders. I mean, we're going to be stuck in Victoria, which is not the worst thing in the world, but also everybody wants to go away at Christmas. It's like, it's the Aussie tradition. And, you know, I just think it's going to be hard. Drinking, mate, you just got to, we are so blessed with what we've got here. I mean, I just think that some of the stuff, alcohol and stuff that we can drink here. The only other great positive, now that I'm on my little rant, is we've been at home and we've realised what it is to be home. And this is the thing that kills me about people going, oh, I've got to do takeaway, I've got to do this. Stay home. Be with your kids, you know. That's the thing. Get what it's like because we know what's going to happen when we do reopen next year. And we've got to go back to being silly busy again, doing 80, 90 hours a week and being away. The positive is this, you know, I've actually seen my kids now for the last 6 months and, you know, it's been good. And that part of it is the only positive, I reckon. That, yeah. And you reassess and I'll be sharpening my knives and, you know, doing that and painted the fence and the like.
What's the greatest Christmas present someone could give you leading into 2021?
Oh, if they could turn around and say, hey, look, you know, it's been fixed. The vaccine's here. Here it is. We'll dispense it out to you within a week. Let's start 2021 the right way. And you kind of go, well, you know, and then your friends are happy and safe, you know. Look, honestly, I talk to so many different chefs all the time. We catch up. You know, I spoke to Spencer the other day. You know, my fish guide, you know, from Hiramasa Kingfish. We're all in this together. And you turn around and you want them to be happy and safe and go, you know what, we're back into it. This has been it's been a crap year for everybody. We just need to forget 2020 and then next year go, right, you know, here it is. Like, honestly, February, we did a bushfire dinner. I had some of the best chefs in Melbourne cooking for a charity. We even got Jackie Challenor down from Sydney. And we had such a brilliant night. It was fantastic. A bushfire dinner. Nobody's thinking about bushfires anymore. We raised so much money for the bushfires. And then you end up saying, bushfires? Oh, yeah, that was pre-COVID. Well, no. Now COVID's the thing now. And you kind of go, wow, that's how quickly we forget. So we've got to quickly try and forget COVID when it comes out. But unfortunately, that's not going to be as easy as that. We need to just go, look, 2021, let's just have a restart. Let's have a rethink. And let's just look out for each other and each other's businesses.
Well, Curly, I think you could talk till Christmas.
I talk a lot of nonsense, you know.
You've given us a lot to think about on the eve of the announcement of the roadmap to out of COVID. And hopefully there's going to be a lot more discussion and some really good decisions made. Mate, really great to catch up.
Great. I look forward to seeing you.
Mate, we'll hopefully see you soon for a beer when you're in Canberra, when they allow you back in. But take care.
Don't worry, I'll let you know.
And keep in touch.
All right. Yeah, be good. Give my love to Locke. See you, mate.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we share the stories of Australia's hospo community, suppliers and producers in search of hope during this pandemic. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.